So what is the impact of fake news in shaping the public agenda, policies, and perhaps even state governance? Should we prevent the mass penetration of fake news? We are going to answer these questions and many more during the next fireside chat, together with Dragos Stanca, founder and CEO Think Digital and ICEEFest, Greg Mroczkowski, IAB Europe, and Gillet, journalist. Gentlemen, please come on stage.
Thank you everybody for sticking around for our panel, which is on narratives of power taking over the news. I'm Kit Gillet. I'm a journalist covering the Balkans for the New York Times, The Guardian, and The Economist, among others. And I'm joined by Greg Mroczkowski, who's a public policy manager at IAB Europe, and Dragos Stanca, who is the founder and CEO of ICEEFest. Now, before we begin, I want to say that fake news is nothing new. People have been peddling rumors or spreading fake news since the dawn of time. Now, what has changed is the way we deal with where we get our news from, and that's very much involved with the digital technology. Now, this has had a profound impact on the way we consume our news and who can impart the news and how far it can spread. So with that, I want to let both of my colleagues on stage talk about their background for this specific topic. Drago?
Hi, yeah, I'm facing fake news every day because among my position as the founder of ICEEFest, my daily business is really connected with helping publishers to monetize their inventory. So we are facing this challenge for a few years now. And the truth is that we were forced somehow to study what happened in the last years, and especially in Eastern Europe, we were facing a big problem because we didn't have established media brands to face the tsunami that came with a technological explosion, and with the fact that Google and Facebook took close to 70% out of the digital advertising market. So we didn't have the New York Times of Romania here from, I don't know, tens and tens of years for the people to know this is verified news, this is serious journalism, and so on and so forth. Basically, there are three main reasons for why fake news became mainstream. Because, as you mentioned, fake news is nothing new. When the first guy that I know hunted a deer in a I don't know, Stone Age came to the tribe and said, I've met a big monster, and all the ladies in the tribe was, you met the monster, you are so good. So fake news, it's a fancy name for lies. Okay. But there are three main reasons. One reason is purely technical. What happened in the last years is the fact that basically Google and Facebook and other players like AppNexus and many others, they democratized the access to advertising. So in the old ages, we used to have a sales department discussing with the agency, with the client, negotiating, okay, this creative is not that good, this creative is not that nice, let's accept it, let's not accept it, and so on and so forth. When programmatic advertising came into stage, basically the human layer disappeared, okay? So the access to the audiences is direct. You have a card, you have a creative, you can run an advertising campaign on Google or Facebook. Same happened, unfortunately, and that's the second reason, to journalism. So those platforms opened up the access to the public, okay? So you don't need to be a journalist anymore in order to reach a big audience. And we love beautiful stories. We love stories more than we love the truth. Truth is boring most of the times. So that's why we have all the fake news. And the third reason, and the most important reason, and this is the hypocrisy of the big tech giants, is business. Because they are selling eyeballs, okay? So if the ad is seen thousands and thousands of times, they are making money out of the programmatic ecosystem. So they have no direct interest in limit this thing, because it's business. There are a lot of money. We have like half an hour or less of talking on this stage. Know how much money Google will do in this? They will do at least $6 million revenue, okay? Because they are 120 billion US dollars annual revenue now. And Facebook is like half or something like that. So it's psychological. We as humans are in love with the fake news, and we love fake stories. The second one is technical with the programmatic ecosystem, and the third one is pure business. And most of the websites that are monetizing generating fake news are using Facebook Exchange Network and Google Display Network to monetize those eyeballs. If the human layer disappeared, that's it. When I was a journalist and I was coming up with a story, look, I have a story, my editor-in-chief said, you should call another person and so on and so forth. Now, if I want to write something on Facebook, like, I know, we had a fight in the backstage, I can do it, and people can like my post and so on and so forth. So that's the long story, very short.
I mean, Greg, just to move on from that for a minute, I mean, obviously, you've been involved in EU-level discussions. You've been involved in looking at this from a bigger picture point of view. Can you just explain, kind of, go into a little bit where we're at with regulatory bodies, or where we're at with EU-wide or worldwide kind of discussions on this topic?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So maybe for those of you who may not know us, we are an EU-level trade association for digital media and online advertising. So we have been indeed involved in discussions, EU-level discussions on disinformation. And maybe here I should remark, I think this is probably a better term for both for this conversation as well as the previous one. I think there has been an appreciation of the fact that well, fake news may be a slightly politically charged notion, yeah. And that has been used with self-interest by many actors, whether political or not. I guess one could even argue if it's fake, it's just not genuine news. From our perspective, any exploitation of the legitimate online advertising business model is harmful for any party involved in the value chain, and that will be both for the buy side as well as the sell side, and anyone in between. And we should probably also remember that advertising traditionally, as well as still now, is indeed funding most of the news, most of the content, both online and offline. On the EU level, where a lot of these discussions have been facilitated by the European Commission, one of the and a sort of very comprehensive but non-regulatory approach has been taken to the issue of disinformation. So that doesn't involve hard law. That involves working in a sort of multi-stakeholder forum to understand the impact of the phenomenon, as well as to roll out certain solutions that could help in avoiding further proliferation of disinformation. And so just to maybe add, one thing that we've been involved in was drawing up a EU-wide code of practice on disinformation, and that has been seen as a major milestone of this work track. So that code has been unveiled in September and officially handed over to the European Commission. It's public in October.
I mean, Dragos, do you think that it is up to the tech companies to self-regulate, the Googles, the Facebooks, or is it up to the governments, the regulatory bodies to keep up with the changes and to...
You know, when we invented the car, we didn't have rules of public circulation. A lot of people had to die before we understood that we need some rules, who's passing first, and so on and so forth. If we are making a step back and we are analyzing what's going on, we are in a very early stage of all this crazy explosion of technology and exponential growth of technology and so on and so forth. So when I don't want to get very depressed, I'm thinking about, okay, we are in an early stage and we are like, you know, teenagers that are still making mistakes and breaking things down, and they will learn something out of it. When I'm depressed, no. But taking the things as they are today, most of the decision is to be taken by big tech companies. But this is hurting. This is hurting the revenues. This will hurt their ability to profile enough data to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. Because sounds a little bit cruel, but even stupid people are buying things, okay? And now the beauty, quote, the beauty of the ecosystem is that we also have fake advertising. Some fake e-commerce websites appeared. We have ad networks in Romania and all over Eastern Europe that are running ads promising, I know, your different parts of the body will get bigger if you acquire different things and so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. And they are making a lot of money, and the legislation, talking about legislation, in Romania for fake advertising, the maximum fine is around 6,000 euros. The minimum revenue that an average website is doing by running fake ads, and ideally a fake news also website, is around 3 to 4 or 5,000 euros per month from those places. So if you accept to put those fake ads, because you know they are fake, but you are also doing fake news, so you don't care, you get a minimum guarantee, like 4,000, 5,000, depends how big you are, how big liar and efficient liar you are. So we are in a complete, I know, fiction. So I think the next thing will be fake people that will read fake news and buy fake products, seeing fake ads or something like that. But still, my hope is that we will not need politicians to regulate this thing, because we all know what happens when politicians step in. I hope that the big tech companies and the whole industry and IAB and whatever, all the organizations of the industry and BRAT, because I'm also running BRAT here in Romania, will find ways to come up with solutions. I'm afraid if we will need the governments to step in, I'm afraid, especially our government or other governments in the region, I'm very afraid of what they will come up with, and I'm afraid that this will leave open doors for censorship, for other things that we don't want to witness.
And Greg, I mean, first, I mean, where do you stand on regulation, self-regulation, and also, I mean, how are the brands involved in the kind of regulation of news, in a sense, in using their power to, we have seen in cable news in the US, to decide that they do not want their products placed on this channel or in this network or for these types of products? What are we seeing with brands flexing their muscles in this area?
Yeah, brands also.
Yeah, I think it will require cross-industry cooperation, but to successfully tackle challenge like this. But just on the first question, I guess I would actually cautious. I would be very cautious about any hard law. I think for one thing. That obviously this whole phenomenon does speak to how we learned how to use the internet. what is it that we are used to. Maybe it's true, you know, from a very human angle, we are at the crossroads, and there are some hard decisions to be made. But there is obviously freedom of expression, freedom of speech. So these are very important fundamental rights that we need to remember of. I think Dragos mentioned some of the examples of potential fines on when it comes to advertising content. We probably, with the advent of new technology, we definitely need to be smarter about how we police ourselves. But I think there's still quite a lot of actually regulation. It's both regulatory and self-regulatory framework, both on the content of the advertising, on the content side of things, as well as the what I would call the delivery. I guess there's no one in this room that haven't heard of the GDPR, which does actually speak a lot to how the data is used in online advertising. And maybe just one final thing on the brands. It's true for us. As a trade body, it's a lot about the brand safety. Our work with other partners to deliver this code of practice. This is where we wanted to. This is how we wanted to reaffirm our investment in brand safety, which is happening across the board. But I think definitely there has to be more education and cooperation between different parts of the value chain to ensure that everyone is aware how to do certain things. Because many of the tools, and I think Dragos would be able to confirm that, are there at our disposal. But it's one thing to have it, and then the other thing is to use it.
The thing is that even GDPR in Romania is used now to limit the liberty of expression. We have a famous case when some guys that were suspected by corruption were invoking GDPR for the articles to be deleted. So here is what's happening when the regulations are stepping in, so that's why I'm a little bit afraid. Where I'm, yes, I completely agree, we need education, and those discussions and everything we do are very important in that aspect. We need to educate the political class, we need to educate everybody, all the stakeholders, the readers, the students. We need to make them aware and how, for them, how they can be protected. And one point of view that I'm having, and is not very politically correct, in my humble opinion, one of the stupidest things that happened in the last years was the concept of citizen journalism. Not everybody is a journalist. A citizen is not a journalist. The fact that my neighbor Viorica just found a cat on the street is not news. The news feed is not news. News feed is not news. Our friends' updates is not news. But the young people are saying, this is news feed, so those are news. So I think journalism, yeah, but I'm a tyrant here. Journalists is a profession. Journalism is a profession. We need to give the journalists back the voice, because it's a profession like being a doctor or whatever. And okay, for the rest of the audience, it's completely fine, the freedom of speech, opinion, and so on and so forth. But we need to re-evaluate and to educate people what news means. News means a piece of story that is written by a journalist that respected the rules of the profession of journalism, published in a safe environment on a media institution that is validated, or on a personal blog of a professional journalist.
I mean, the last speaker obviously talked about the role of disinformation in the Brexit referendum, in the election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I mean, do you think we're at a tipping point, an inflection point, where enough people, whether they are regulatory or in the industry or just people around the world, feel that something needs to be done? Have we reached that point where this has become a known enough issue and people feel that there needs to be a solution?
I think there's obviously a lot of talk about these issues, but I would again being maybe slightly more pragmatic. I think we and I've seen a lot of data during the previous intervention, and I'm not denying credibility of it, but I think there still has to be more research done, because some of the data or some of the facts, if we look at the bigger picture, we can think that this is merely anecdotal, and we need to always look at the bigger picture, put it in context. So that's one thing, and I would echo, but I would echo a number of these recommendations or suggestions again from the previous speaker, as well as some of the things that Dragos has been flagging. That there has to be more investment in media literacy, and I think also as that's on individuals level, but that we also have this onus as industry, which would like to be seen, and I hope is still in favor when it comes to responsible behavior.
I mean, do you feel that there are technological solutions to this? I mean, again, the last speaker talked about the number of Twitter bots and talked about the spread of disinformation, of fake news, and obviously, eventually, those, just by the fact we know the statistics and they were taken down, that they were eventually discovered. I mean, are there technological solutions that can be brought in to better divide the information from disinformation, to better find these nefarious actors, if you will?
As an event organizer, I know how important to stay on time is, so I will be very short. One of the problems we have with fake news is that a lot of geeks, a lot of technological guys just fall in love with an idea. For example, an Adobe guy did a voice replicator and said, "Oh, this is very nice for gaming industry." But it's not very nice because we also can use it in a fake news and replicate my voice saying stupid or funny things. So we have the solutions, we have the brains to find solutions, but we have to use those brains and creativity in the right direction. And those companies should ask their engineers, okay, think about ideas. The problem is that still the artificial intelligence is not that smart for the moment. There are a lot of successes, but in English. So for our countries, it's not efficient. The machines cannot detect irony. They cannot detect a joke. They can't detect many things. It's very hard. So, for example, the famous example: Paris Hilton is the city, is the person, or is the hotel chain, and so on and so forth. So it's complicated, but the solutions must be multiple. Education, in my opinion, it's very important. Then technical solutions, and then decisions hard to be taken by the big tech giants, and in the end, regulations and so on and so forth. I think the regulation should be the last on this list, in my opinion. I'm afraid of too many regulations.
And just before we end, I mean, do you have anything to follow that, Greg, or?
I think it's very. I have said that before, but I think it's very important for us to work together in the ecosystem, because it's indeed very complicated. And I think, well, Dragos, again, like you will probably have more of experience when it comes to working on the ground. But it's often that we hear how unaware people from different parts of the industry are about what is out there, and how to use that tech for the good.